So I want to talk about the mommy tummy in this video, and this is one of the terms that I see and I absolutely cringe. No offense if that's what brought you to this video, but let's talk about why that is a reaction from me. So when we talk about mommy tummy, it's saying that they still look pregnant or that they still have a flabby tummy, that there's loose skin. So even if someone else were to perceive that that person still looks great and we think we still have a mommy tummy, that's doing something to us mentally, and it's also messing with our body image. Most of the time prior to pregnancy, we didn't have a positive body image anyways, or we didn't realize that our body was the way it was and we still weren't happy with it. And we often reflect to go back to that. So what I'm going to do in this video is give you some core exercises that you can do, whether at home or with equipment. There's going to be 3 main ones that I recommend, as well as the breathing. But other than that, I'm going to walk you through some different options and then talk about some progressions with them. But what I want you to focus on here is if you're able to engage the core correctly. So there's different muscles within the core, but oftentimes we think of like that rectus abdominis, which is like the 8-pack or the 6-pack that you see. But there's a transverse abdominis, there's 2 sets of obliques in there as well, that we want to make sure all of that is turning on when we're doing these core exercises. So if you find that you're not feeling the core or feeling those muscles, then you either need to modify and go back a step, or we need to get some additional help. It's really important that you look for support in order to do this, because what I have learned too in my past is that I'll often engage the wrong muscles thinking I'm doing it correctly, go and see a specialist, and it turns out I'm not doing it. So there is some benefit in whether that's a personal trainer who has pre and postnatal certification, or a pelvic floor physical therapist, or even a chiropractor that is more athletic based. So there is some warrant in doing all of that. So join me as I walk you through some of these video options or movement options, and find what ones work the best for you. Again, I would start with the basics that I talk about and then move into those advanced features. The first exercise that we're going to do is just breathing. And as you've seen in my prior videos, this is something that I talk about extensively and the importance of it. So when we think of our stomach, we're thinking of a whole canister. So my ribs need to move out and in, my belly needs to move out and in, my back also needs to be moving, and then the pelvic floor needs to drop and raise. So when we're focusing on breathing, this is actually something that is a foundation to any of the core movements, because if we can't connect to this, then it's going to be really challenging to integrate those core movements. So what we'll do first, and I encourage you to do this while you're laying in bed at night, because it'll help you kind of go to sleep and relax. But even I'll do it when I'm breastfeeding, of just kind of relaxing and expanding my belly and relaxing my pelvic floor, not being so tight. So when I'm doing this, I've got my back nice and flat against a surface. So for example, on this one, I'm on the ground, and I'm going to relax my pelvic floor. So kind of these muscles feel really tight, and then breathing into them. Good. And so what I want to do is I can use my hands as tactile feedback. I can put them on my belly and say, okay, I want this to expand. A lot of times when we were growing up, we sucked in our stomach. We actually want to release that tension and not suck in our stomach anymore. I'm expanding my belly, relaxing. And as I'm relaxing and exhaling, I'm thinking of all of these muscles coming together, almost like they're trying to zip up this midline here. So another area that I want you to pay attention to is your back, and you can even put one hand on your belly, another hand on the back, or both hands on the back if you have trouble doing this. And breathing into the hands, using them as tactile feedback and cues. So am I breathing into my hand and my back? And if I'm not, can I center my kind of consciousness or my direction of focusing more on that area, so that way that air can get there? I can also move my hands up to my ribs and make sure they're expanding and contracting as well. Oftentimes postpartum, our ribs will be more wide. And so we get a bigger bra and we're like, what's going on? And it's because these ribs had to flare out and expand to make room for baby. So breathing exercises, you can do that throughout the day. There is no set time. But if you're really working on the core and wanting to rebuild and rehab that, I would say at least 1 minute pre-workout, or even if you want to do it post-workout as kind of a cool down, that would be a great exercise to do with a 1 minute bare minimum. or just bringing more conscious awareness throughout it or for it throughout the day. So the next exercise we can do is we're going to do a ball press. This is often seen on my Instagram. I'm not sure if it's on y'all's, but what we're going to do is just, again, use a ball as tactile feedback to bring more awareness. So I'm going to get on my hands and knees here. I'm going to kind of tuck my butt, roll my shoulders down and back. And as I'm inhaling, I'm going to release the ball up, press down. So now this is just creating greater tension in my core. So that same breathing pattern that we worked on in that supine position, so the laying down position, I'm now bringing with the ball and just creating tension. So this would be a good progression for the breathing. I would do one hand and then switch hands, maybe 2 to 3 sets of 5 breaths per side. And then as you feel more comfortable with that movement, that's actually a progression or a modification for what I like to call all fours breathing. This one is a bit challenging and there's different ways we can do it. But one of my favorite ways is one, we're going to get on all fours. I'm going to tuck my toes under. So actually, let me take off my slippers here. Good. So I'm going to tuck my toes under. And what I'm going to do is exhale and excessively round my back and stomach. So that way my navel is going to my spine, but I'm not cinching it. I'm using all of my lower abs, my obliques to all come together and bring it in. Another exercise for this is called vacuums, but that's more so for bodybuilders and what they do. So again, shoulders down and back, tuck my pelvis slightly. I'm going to go into this, I forget if this is cat or cow. And so I'm going to exhale. And then I'm going to lift up and hold. And I'm going to focus on my breathing. So your progression at first might just be to exhale and lifting. And then as soon as you need to take that inhale, I'm going to come back down and reset. Another modification or progression is to exhale and just kind of hold. So for example, what it should look like at the end of the day is I'm going to exhale, round my back, and I'm going to lift. And if I'm breathing, I'm consciously resetting that position over and over again. So great activation for, so you could do that starting at, again, 2 to 3 sets and holding for, just lifting for the breath and then even going to 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's really everything can build on itself with sets in time or reps. So the next exercise is marches. We had these in the first 6 weeks and in my early postpartum recovery. So one of the things that we can do is one, the heel slides. That's a good option. And then 2, going into the marches, we're just going to lift the foot, coming back down, lift the foot, coming back down. So I want to feel it here. But again, are these muscles here turning on? So always use your hands as tactile feedback. It's very helpful. Marches are a good modification and progression for dead bug. So again, I can start with just the marches. I can bring both feet up and just do one down and alternate or do same side. Then I can bring arms up and just hold it there. And then as I progress more, I can go down and up. And then another progression would be a tension. So I'm going to take my ball again, create some tension of that cross body. So my right hand to my left knee, creating tension there. And do that. Another progression, say there was a wall behind me, I can push into here and just go through the dead bug phases as well. So again, many modifications there for your core, but you want to start with what's comfortable and where you can activate that. The dead bug is also, I would say, a intro or progression for hanging leg raises. However, I'm not going to show those today. Oftentimes what I find when women are doing hanging leg raises, they're using their hip flexors, not their lower abs. And it also is creating kind of that like lower belly pooch. That lower belly pooch is because we're not engaging appropriately or for one of the reasons, not because we're engaging appropriately. You're most likely using your hip flexors. So if we're doing leg raises, whether that's on the floor, the V ups, and then the hanging leg raises with the bar, oftentimes those are for my more advanced clients. And it's not to say that nobody can do them. It's just something that you'll get more engagement by focusing on the smaller bits and staying with that as opposed to trying to go for these large movements that look super fancy and cool, you're more likely to get the outcome you're seeking for by just doing the basics, as with anything that I coach with. Next thing that we're going to move to is the bird dog. So I did one of these in one of my workout videos, but when we're doing bird dog, again, hands and knees position, I'm going to round or bring shoulders back, slightly tuck pelvis. And again, we can just start with just doing a leg out or maybe an arm forward. It's really what's up to you and what's working. If I find that I'm kind of starting to do this, my body's getting tired, I'm not ready for that. So I need to do it with more intention. So with this bird dog, I'm going to come tuck pelvis, shoulders down, thinking of bringing everything together so I've got that nice zipper in my midline. And then I'm going to just go out and in, out and in. For some of you, you may think this movement's too easy, but I promise if we're actively contracting those muscles together, it's going to give you the outcome you're looking for. Ways to progress this, I can take a resistance band here that's fixed to something. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for a lot of people, and it's often unnecessary. I don't even do this myself. And so what I can do, let's come back here, sorry. Come forward, out, and pull it back in. And I can create more tension on this if I want to. So that's another progression that you can do. Another one that I see a lot is twist, and Russian twist particularly. So you'll see a lot of people, they'll have a weight and they're just kind of going like this without any really thinking about what's going on here. So if you look at me when I'm doing it, I'm gonna lift up my shirt for y'all. So one, I'm creating kind of this coning here, and two, I'm creating a cinching here. So if you see, I've got the lower belly pooch, and then I've got a cone, which is two big no-nos. So when we're doing that, one modification, and actually that I prefer, is you can take a ball. This one's not as stable, but like a med ball that's heavier with a lot of weight. And I'm going to just use it to help prop up my back. My feet are going to stay planted on the floor. Stop taking your feet off the ground. And what I'm going to do is kind of lean back, find that place where I get a nice amount of tension. And so that could be here, or it could be here, or it could be here. It really depends on where you're going to do this smoothly and quietly. And what I mean by quietly is we're not using a lot of momentum. It's a lot of smooth technique back and forth. Think of it as like a nice ocean current. What I also want to make sure is that my hip flexors aren't taking over for the movement to hold me up. So here I may feel that tension, but my hip flexors are kicking in. So I'm going to come back up here. And all I'm going to do is inhale, exhale as I rotate, and coming back to center. Exhale as I rotate, coming back to center. Again, hands are on my stomach to provide that tactile feedback. And I'm thinking of everything drawing in, coming up this midline. Now, if I want to challenge myself, I can add a weight. But if you take this nice and slow, you're actually going to get the outcome you're looking for. I've had a client before who wanted to do med ball slams against a wall where it's a whole body rotation, but she couldn't feel her abs turn on in this position. So why do I need more action to turn on? Well, because I'm using more momentum and I'm using more muscles and I'm incorporating them. But if I brought her back down to the basics of this, we weren't even using the basics of our trunk. So this is a great movement postpartum, but again, we want to make sure that we're ready for it and that the right muscles are turning on. If at some point you feel that this is too easy or that you'd like to progress, then we can keep our feet up. But oftentimes I realize the feet up is not necessary for what we're trying to do for a majority of the population. So you have lots of options with body weight and with a simple ball. This is off Amazon. Another options are with a resistance band here. So I'm going to show you in a kneeling position, but you can do these in a half kneeling position. You can do these in a standing position as well. So what I'm going to do is first the Pallof press. Pallof press, I'm going to bring it into the midline of my abdomen. My hand that's closest to the fixed point. So right here for me, it's the rack. For you, it may be the door. And so my hand that's closest is going to be on the inside of the handle. I notice that clients who put their hand that's on the outside, they end up pulling their body as opposed to keeping it centered. So when I'm doing this, I'm exhaling as I'm coming out, inhaling as I'm coming down. Again, bringing up belly. This is where breathing and those foundations kick in. Midline is centered and coming all together. So I'm just exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. If I'm shaking, I need to either lighten the resistance or move in. The further out I go, the tighter it's going to be. The more in I go, the looser it's going to be. So you can create tension just by different bands and by your positioning. Another option too, again, you can do this kneeling or half kneeling or standing, or even in a split stance, is a twist. I'm going to walk out here. So twist, I'm just going to rotate with that trunk. So again, foundations, Russian twist, this can come into it as well. So rotating. So inhale, exhale here. Exhale there. What I don't want to see is a pull with my arms, as you can see. That's more working my biceps and my arms, not my core. I'll also see clients who overly engage their back. So that's when I would say, let's take the resistance down or take a step in and really just focus on maybe we just come to this midpoint, hold, and go back. So shorten the range of motion so I can get more comfortable with creating tension in the core and then eventually go that full spectrum. You would do this facing one direction, then facing the other direction as well. The other option that you can do with a resistance band is do a high to low. So let me grab this guy over here. So as you can see, I've got this on a higher stance. I'm going to go into a half kneeling position just to give you another option. So you can have your opposite leg kneeling or the ipsilateral same side leg kneeling. The main thing is core. So you're going to kind of feel a diagonal engagement. So I'm going to come from here and down. Inhaling, exhaling. Again, I don't want to be pulling and pressing down. I'm trying to keep everything engaged so that way my core can recover and that way it gets stronger. Then we can build that aesthetic that you're looking for. So again, recovery is the primary, secondary is going to be this strength, and then third is going to be the aesthetics. Most people want the aesthetics to come first without actually having the muscles there. We got to build the muscles, but in order to build the muscles, we got to think and make sure we can feel the muscles. And so each thing builds on each other, and that's where the postpartum recovery reality actually comes in, and where the misinformation or gimmicks of the solve your mommy tummy are coming in. Like they'll tell you, here's a 30-day fix for your mommy tummy, but you don't know how to turn it on. Well, you can be doing those exercises, and if you're not actively aware of which muscles you should be working with, then you're not going to get that 30-day fix that they're selling you on. So that's something to be aware of. So again, I'm going to come here, high to low, and then I would switch sides, switch knees as well. So resistance bands, relatively cheap on Amazon as well. I'll put a link for those in the description, and then a link for the Pilates ball in the description as well. Last core movement, one of my favorites, is a carry. And so this one is awesome. And you can do this with a dumbbell, you can do this with a baby, you can do this with a car seat. It really is versatile for anything in your home. So for example, I have some paint cans in the garage that I could use as the equipment instead of having gym equipment. So I'm going to take this kettlebell, for example. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick it up. So again, when we pick up something, we want to make sure that we're in a nice position. So thinking of our deadlift where I hit you in the hips and coming back, and I'm going to pick up, shoulders down and back, and exhale as I bring it up. Now you can't see the full picture here, but what I'm doing is shoulders are down and back, and I'm going to have this hand out for balance. You may keep it on your core. You may not need it for balance, but I do. And what I'm going to do is just walk, take my steps this way, put it down, and switch hands. So a farmer's carry, you can do it just carrying it at one side. You can do two hands with a weight or a paint can. You can do a hand overhead. You can do two hands overhead. You could do one hand overhead, one hand down here with weight. There's a lot of options for that, but carry is a great kind of, I would say, transmission over to real life, right? So how often do we pick up baby? How often do we pick up car seat? How often do we pick up something off the floor? A lot. And sometimes that thing is heavy. And so if we need to be able to carry it from one point to the other, that's really versatile and helpful for you. So which 4 exercises should you always incorporate? If you don't do any of those other ones, which ones would I recommend? My 4 favorite exercises are Pallof, twists, breathing, and carries. Breathing is number 1. So again, we can do that when we're feeding. We can do that when we're in bed or for the gym to prepare us mentally or as a cool down. The Pallof I like with the press outs, with the resistance bands, again, relatively cheap, and we can put them in the door. If you don't have that, a bird dog is great, same kind of movement, or essentially same kind of activation. Twist I like for obliques. So again, we can do that with a Russian twist with a ball or a med ball, or even if you don't have that at home, we can just kind of practice that with the resistance bands as well. So everything kind of works with each other. The other one is carries. Carries we can do with a paint can, we can do with dumbbell, kettlebell, lots of options for that, car seat. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating those 4 movements in one way or another. So this is why mommy tummy will get solved, or how it will get solved rather. It's going to be solved by bringing engagement to the core, bringing awareness to it. Again, we're going to build that strength, and then again, we can focus on the aesthetics with diet and nutrition. So if you like this video, or if you found one of these exercises helpful, let me know. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.